Tonight, we enter a landscape built not only from stone, but from intention. Under the silence of the Egyptian desert, the pyramids rise like impossible mountains, aligned with a precision that unsettles modern engineers. For centuries, they have been called tombs. But some researchers, mystics, and theorists believe that explanation is too small. They argue these monuments were designed to interact with sound, vibration, even consciousness. If that is true, then the Great Pyramid is not simply a grave for the dead. It is a machine. And humanity may yet have no understanding of what it was built to do. The first mystery is not hidden inside the pyramid. It is the pyramid itself. On the Giza Plateau, under a sky so vast it seems to press down on the earth, the Great Pyramid rises with a stillness that feels unnatural, almost deliberate, as if it is listening. Built from millions of stone blocks, weighing more than locomotives, it should be nothing more than a relic of a vanished kingdom. Yet the longer scientists study it, the less ordinary it appears. Its position is astonishing. Its geometry is obsessive. Its chambers produce strange acoustic behavior. And around it, stories have gathered like static in the air. Ancient Egyptian priests believed sound had creative power. Words spoken in sacred space were not symbols. They were force. In temple rituals, vibration, chant, and resonance were used as tools to cross the boundary between the visible and the invisible. That belief alone does not prove the pyramid was built as a frequency device. But it opens a dangerous question. What if the structure was never meant only to hold a body? What if it was designed to shape energy, amplify vibration, or alter the human state of mind? Inside the king's chamber, researchers have noticed something unsettling. Certain tones do not simply echo. They linger. They thicken. Some frequencies seem to bloom within the granite walls as though the chamber was built to hold them. Modern acoustic tests have found resonant behavior concentrated in specific rooms, especially in the king's chamber and the so-called queen's chamber. To some physicists, this is an architectural curiosity. To others, it is the fingerprint of intent. Then there is the material itself. Granite is rich in quartz, and quartz is no ordinary mineral. Under pressure, it exhibits piezoelectric properties, generating electrical charge when mechanically stressed. In the modern world, quartz helps regulate watches, radios, and electronic systems through vibration. In the ancient world, buried in the heart of the pyramid, quartz-rich stone sits inside one of the most precise structures ever made. Coincidence, perhaps? But at Giza, coincidence begins to feel like the least satisfying answer. And the pyramid does not exist in isolation. Its measurements appear linked to astronomical alignments, cardinal directions, and ratios that seem to bridge earth and sky. Some theorists argue that the monument was positioned to interact with planetary forces, even the natural electromagnetic environment of the earth itself. The idea sounds fantastical, until one remembers the true scale of the structure, a mountain of tuned stone, built with precision that should have been impossible for its age. That is why the mystery refuses to die. Because every explanation closes one door and opens another. A tomb does not need this precision. A monument does not need these resonant chambers. A grave does not need to feel like an instrument. So the question remains, buried beneath centuries of dust and certainty, if the Great Pyramid was built to interact with frequency, who understood that power, and what were they trying to reach? To understand why the pyramid continues to haunt both science and imagination, we have to step inside it not as archaeologists, but as engineers of vibration. The passageways narrow like veins inside stone. Air becomes still. Sound changes. A footstep no longer feels small. It travels. It returns. It folds back on itself. In the heart of the structure, the king's chamber sits like a sealed instrument, lined with immense granite blocks hauled from hundreds of miles away. Granite was harder to cut, harder to transport, harder to raise. Yet it was chosen for the chamber at the core. That decision alone suggests function, not ornament. When modern researchers began modeling the Great Pyramid with electromagnetic and acoustic simulations, they found something startling. Under certain conditions, the pyramid appears capable of concentrating energy in specific internal regions. Some studies suggested that electromagnetic waves in the radio frequency range could theoretically resonate within the structure, especially around the chambers and beneath the base. This does not prove the ancient Egyptians built a power plant. But it changes the argument. The pyramid may not be a passive object. Its shape itself may interact with forces that are normally invisible to human senses. Then there is the underground chamber, rough, unfinished, and deeply unsettling. Unlike the polished spaces above, it feels ancient even by ancient standards, like a forgotten first draft of the monument's purpose. Some theorists believe it may have been connected to water flowing beneath the plateau. That matters because moving water can generate electrical effects, and vibration passing through stone and liquid can produce resonance far more complex than dry chambers alone. In that theory, the pyramid was not just standing on the earth. It was plugged into it. What makes this idea so difficult to dismiss is that ancient Egyptian civilization understood rhythm, cycles, and celestial order with terrifying precision. They tracked stars, floods, seasons, and ritual timings with a discipline that bordered on obsession. To them, the universe was not chaos. It was pattern. If the pyramid was designed to mirror that cosmic order, then resonance may have been part of a sacred science lost beneath the language of myth. A chamber could become more than a room. It could become a threshold. And then comes the twist. Some explorers and sound researchers have reported altered sensations inside the pyramid: pressure in the skull, disorientation, heightened focus, even an almost meditative trance when tones are sustained in enclosed chambers. These experiences are subjective, yes, but they echo a larger possibility. Perhaps the true mechanism was never about generating electricity for machines. Perhaps it was about tuning human consciousness itself. A structure that shapes sound, pressure, darkness, and isolation could function like a psychological device, guiding the mind into rare states that ancient priests interpreted as contact with the divine. That possibility makes the mystery larger, not smaller. Because if the pyramid was built as a technology of consciousness, then we are not looking at primitive religion. We are looking at an intelligence that understood architecture as a way to shape perception, biology, and belief. And that means the Great Pyramid may not be a monument to death at all. It may be a machine for transformation. If that is true, then the final implication is not merely historical. It is existential. Because the Great Pyramid would no longer be a silent tomb from a dead civilization. It would become evidence that human beings once pursued a forgotten path of knowledge, one that did not separate matter from spirit, stone from vibration, architecture from consciousness. In that vision of the ancient world, reality was not made only of objects. It was made of frequencies, alignments, and states of awareness. The pyramid was not built to store power in the modern sense. It was built to unlock it. That possibility forces us to confront an uncomfortable thought. Modern civilization prides itself on its machines, its satellites, its calculations, its control over energy. Yet for all our progress, we may have lost a different form of intelligence, one that asks not only how the world works, but how the human mind can be brought into harmony with it. Ancient Egypt may have understood that a structure could do more than shelter life or honor death. It could change the inner condition of the person who entered it. And if so, the pyramid was not simply engineered. It was encoded. This is where mystery becomes something darker. Because lost knowledge is never just about the past. It is about what vanished with it. What rituals were performed in those chambers? What tones were sung beneath those stone ceilings? What states of mind were induced in darkness, in silence, in resonance? We do not know. The texts are incomplete. The ceremonies are gone. The builders are dust. All that remains is the shell of an idea so immense that it unsettles the modern imagination, that an entire civilization may have built its greatest monument around principles we still cannot fully name. And perhaps that is why the pyramids continue to disturb us. Not because they are old, but because they feel unfinished in the mind. They resist closure. Each scan, each theory, each acoustic experiment brings us closer to the stones, yet not necessarily closer to the truth. The more precisely we measure them, the more they seem to slip away from ordinary explanation. Tomb. Observatory. initiation chamber, resonance device. Each label captures something, but never enough. The pyramid remains larger than the language we use to contain it. In the end, the deepest mystery may not be whether the pyramid generated energy, amplified sound, or altered consciousness. It may be why humanity keeps returning to it with the same restless feeling that something essential has been forgotten. We stand at the edge of these ancient stones like visitors to a message half erased by time, sensing that the builders knew something about existence that we have buried beneath centuries of certainty. Civilizations rise by mastering the outer world. But perhaps the greatest among them also explored the inner one. And if the pyramids were built at the meeting point of both, then their true power was never in the stone alone. It was in the idea that the universe is not silent, and that somewhere between vibration, memory, and consciousness, humanity once believed it could hear the voice of eternity.